Coming up, a special edition of Kickin' with Mabel. I'll be interviewing a few guests about some important topics that are in line with the winter season. They include fire safety, an annual coat drive, and a conversation with a courageous mother who turned her tragic loss into an opportunity to educate others. Please stay tuned. We're joined by Pam ODonnell, founder of the Catch You Later Foundation, and Maureen Vogel, Director of Communications for the National Safety Council, who will talk to us about the risks, including the fatalities that can result from distracted driving. Pam, Maureen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having us.
Pam, you started the Catch You Later Foundation in response to a tragic loss that you had in your family after a horrific car crash. Can you share a little more about your story and your nonprofit organization?
Sure. On February 22nd of 2016, my husband and my 5-year-olds were coming home from a routine day at school. He was a school teacher in Jersey City. He had my daughter, who was 5, in her car seat, as she should be, right behind him, though. And he was pulling into a toll plaza to take a ticket. He didn't have an easy pass. And an impaired, distracted driver came up right behind him going 55 miles per hour in a 5-mile-per-hour zone and propelled him into oncoming traffic. My husband died at the scene, and it wasn't until maybe an hour or so later that I got a phone call at work that detectives were coming to pick me up and bring me to the hospital to identify the body of my now deceased 5-year-old. So we formed our foundation. I refuse to let them die in vain. So we formed our foundation that does give out scholarships. We go out to high schools. I went to the National Safety Council advocate meeting in Chicago. Ithaca, in November, and hopefully we'll be working more together. So that comes into play when I go out and talk about distracted and impaired driving at high schools, church services, corporate companies. I always mention National Safety Council, the workshop that I did. I refuse to let my family die in vain, and it'll be 5 years this upcoming February that we lost half of our family, which is a hard issue because I realized at approximately 3:20 p.m. my daughter will now have been dead longer than she was alive. So we do give out scholarships. We do work with National Safety Council. I share things, they share things. We go out to schools, and we try to get to the kids as they're getting their permits and their licenses. So our foundation, we give out scholarships in memory of my son and daughter. I'm sorry, my husband and daughter. But we need to get the word out there. Sadly, distracted and impaired driving, I found, is not talked quite as much publicly. We don't get the CNN town halls. We don't get the Dateline hour episodes. And we need to get more of that to spread that message and save lives. If we get to one person, then it's worth it for me to do what I'm doing. And I'm glad that the National Safety Council has had me at their workshop. I'm glad we communicate. They are a source of great information. Their website is amazing. Anybody could go on and get statistics and talk to people like Maureen and everybody else that I spoke with. And, I refuse to let them die in vain. I see it as an epidemic that nobody wants to talk about. And we really do need to work together to get the word out and make people realize it's a 3,000-pound weapon of mass destruction. So when you get behind that wheel, if we could change the narrative of somebody's thinking, and if we can just change one person's mind, together we can move mountains.
Maureen, when it comes to data, and Pam alluded to this, what is recent data? What's the latest that in terms of reports about what's going on the roads?
Yeah, so stories like Pam's are tragically too common. Unfortunately, we lose as many as 40,000 people a year in completely preventable traffic crashes. And most recently, we're seeing in the pandemic that traffic rates are up. So, what that means is that we have taken vehicles off the road, our miles driven have decreased because of quarantines, but we haven't reaped a safety benefit from that. So the people who are out on the roads are dying.
It's unfortunate that it's not taken on a national level, that politicians are not talking about it. We need to get more lawmakers on board to change some punishment penalties, even just having a conversation. I would love to see a CNN town hall. We've had them for mass shootings, we have them for the opioid addiction, which are all very important. But we also, I feel like we're kind of like on a back burner because it's for approximately 40,000 people are dying. And, we don't get the press that I think we need. So I'm grateful for you reaching out to me, Mabel, to talk about this situation because it does need to get out there. And to Maureen's point, I'm driving up and down our highways every day, spreading awareness. And I see it all the time, even through the COVID. Far less cars were on the road, but I would see people driving in excess of 100 miles per hour.
Pam, I know that prior to the pandemic, you were actually going out to the high school, specifically Bayonne High School. You were talking to students, having discussion, engaging in demonstrations where they could actually test and see what it's like to be impaired after, let's say, a couple of drinks. Can you talk to us about those demonstrations and when do you foresee them taking place once again?
Sure. What I did was through my foundation and the generosity of others, I was able to purchase there's goggles, there's marijuana goggles, there's alcohol goggles. So through my foundation and the generosity of others, I was able to purchase them. And when I go and I do talks at any school, whether it's my local school, I've been all over New Jersey to many, many other schools. I bring the goggles with me so that the children, the teens rather, could try them on and see exactly what it's like to focus with the goggles on and see how impaired they are. So when you get to a student, let's say a sophomore or junior class is what I normally talk to, I have them put the goggles on and I bought a path because we are in a classroom. When the nicer weather comes out, we are able to do it in the parking lot. And I make them walk a path that has it'll have like a little old lady walking with a walker, it'll have a mailman, it'll have a dog crossing the street, a child going after a ball. So I make the student walk the path first straight without the goggles, and then they put the goggles on, and it's the emotion that comes out of them is like, oh my goodness, I can't, like, they could see three of me. So they really do get a taste for what it's like to drive behind the wheel, distracted or impaired. I make them walk the path with their phones, as if they're texting somebody, and they can then see exactly like, wow, I really killed that fake old lady crossing the street because I was looking at my phone. Last year, we did a car crash recreation in the city of Bayonne with Bayonne High School. And any talk, the feedback that we got was any talk of any kid, trying to get beer or whatever for the after party, that all ceased once we did the car crash recreation. So not one kid got thrown out of the prom, nobody got arrested. Graduation was as fun and as alcohol free as it could be. So we are changing the narrative. I don't claim to be, an expert. I'm just a mom hoping that it doesn't happen to somebody else. And, I always encourage the parents to have a conversation with their students because you often see parents are texting and driving. And if the parents are doing it, their kids are going to do it.
For students who want to participate in the scholarship program aspect of the foundation, what do they need to do and what are the qualifications? I guess at this point it would be for next year.
Yeah, the kids, we give out very small. They're $2,000 each. We give out one for because we live in the city of Bayonne. We give out a $2,000 scholarship to a student that lives in Bayonne and can go to any high school in Hudson County in New Jersey. And we also give out a $2,000 scholarship to a county prep high school student because that was the school my husband taught at. So they can go to our website. They can find the Catch You Later Foundation on Facebook or also on Instagram. Our website, which is www.catchyoulater.org. The application is actually on the website. And a lot of the questions have to do with, we made it very personal. Like one question is, how can you work with your peers to decrease the numbers of distracted and impaired driving? What can you do as a young person? How can you spread awareness? So we always modeled the questions. The applications are very simple. It's 6 questions regarding my husband and daughter. What do you do to volunteer? What are some of the traits that you have that my husband and daughter would have? How would you talk to your peers about distracted and impaired driving? You know, if we all work together, we can move mountains.
You're absolutely right. Mountains can be moved, but it takes a village. We're joined by Megan Mulligan, Senior Manager for Service Events at Jersey Cares. And Megan, you're going to be speaking to us about a coat drive, an annual coat drive.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. We are celebrating our 25th year of the coat drive. So every year, Jersey Cares collects over 20,000, anywhere between 20 and 30,000 coats. And we work with hundreds of nonprofit partners to get those coats out to the community.
How can individuals donate coats? So what can they do to participate in the program?
Yeah, so our coat drive is still going on. So it's running until Sunday, January 10th. So if you're bored over the holiday break and you're cleaning out your closets or someone gives you something that you didn't want, you can feel free to drop off those coats. We have 12 different container sites all across the state. So you can go on our website, www.jerseycares.org, find your closest donation site and bring those coats there.
How are the individuals selected that will be participating and receiving some of these coats?
So we work with any 501c3 charity, government agencies, and public schools all across the state. So they can sign up on our website. And once we verify those different organizations to make sure that those coats are going to be going back to the community, we distribute on a first come, first served basis.
This year, in light of the pandemic, have you found that there's been a larger need for coats?
Yeah, most definitely. We've seen across many of our drives that people who might have typically been donors before are now finding themselves in difficult situations where they might now need to be on the other side of it. So as difficult as that is to see, it's nice to know that all of these individuals do have a place to come and there's always some place to go if you need help. So we've definitely seen the increased need and we're hoping that our donations match that volume.
How does that make you feel to see the work that's being done?
It's so beyond humbling, especially with everything that's going on, just to see the impact that, volunteers all across the state. It might not seem like much when you're just donating a coat or donating a couple coats or, purchasing one online. But when you see that volume all in front of you and all come together and to really think across the year how many people we've impacted, there's nothing that compares.
Well, it definitely makes me think of the spirit of giving, and that's certainly what I hope we're doing year round, but certainly this time of the year.
Yeah, we've definitely seen, especially over this holiday season, so many people looking to give back, and those who are able to are really going above and beyond this year, and we are just so very thankful.
Megan, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and thank you for all of the work that Jersey Cares is doing.
Thank you so much for highlighting this program. We couldn't do it without your support.
we're joined by Chief Frank Montagne from North Hudson Regional Fire and Rescue, who is going to share with us some helpful tips we should all keep in mind as we approach the winter season. Welcome, Chief Montagne.
Good afternoon, Mabel. Thanks for having me.
This year seems to be zooming by with major holidays upon us and the cold season almost here. What should our viewers be preparing for? What's the to-do list you recommend to protect our homes and families?
I have quite a few things I'd like to speak to you about, and one of the first ones is to let them aware that 3,000 to 4,000 people die a year in fires, and also a lot of those deaths, about 500 or more, contribute to carbon monoxide. So that leads into why it's so important to have a smoke detector and carbon monoxide detectors within your house. They should be checked on a monthly basis, and you should change your batteries. What do you say, twice a year? You know, the changing of the clock is a good time to remember, or a minimum at once a year. Also, with your smoke detectors, I recommend that you have one in outside every bedroom, the separate sleeping area, and each level in your house. And also, again, it's changing the batteries. But I also recommend that they have the newer smoke detectors out there. They're a 10-year battery life. So I would recommend getting one of these. And they have a battery that doesn't have to be changed for 10 years. Also, when you're looking at these, make sure they have the UL, the certified company that checks the smoke detectors, Underwriters Laboratory, so you know that's a certified agency that's checking them out. So the 10-year, I think, is warranted. You know, you would actually write on the back, or so you know when you install that, so you can make sure that when the 10 years coming close, you could change it again. And they actually say it's a savings by changing batteries every year in the older smoke detectors. It's a cost savings that paying for those batteries. This would come to about the same cost. So that's peace of mind, and it's for 10 years of life. Also, if your regular smoke detectors, they start chirping, that's a warning sign. They have a low battery. You know, make sure you take it out and replace it if you have that sign.
Also, as the weather gets colder, people are going to start using space heaters. Some people enjoy candles for warmth as well as decorative purposes. What should people be mindful of?
Yeah, especially when it gets colder, your heating units are something that are very important and you should get checked by a professional. Whether you have gas, oil, hot air, there's different components that need to be checked. Make sure there's no dust, make sure they're operating properly. So I recommend that you get a professional come in and check that out. Also, if you have any chimney that deals with gas or oil, make sure that chimney is checked. Usually when someone come in, they do a sweep of the chimney and clean it out. And if you're using any kind of portable devices, make sure they do have the certified label of an Underwriters Laboratory or testing agencies. And when you're using them, make sure you use the proper extension cords. Make sure they're attached to a surge protector that will protect the unit from in case there's an electrical problem. And always keep any kind of portable unit away from any combustibles, at least 3 to 4 feet away. You don't want any kind of draperies or things that could ignite easily. Keep that away. Another thing that people also tend to use, and it's a big concern, are candles. A lot of people don't like the scent of candles, like the way they look, and that's fine. But make sure they're in a safe area. Make sure they're on a stable table. Other times, animals could knock them off if they're not on a stable table. Also, keep them away at least 3 feet from anything that could burn. And one thing very important, that when you leave the house, please put the candle out. Don't keep it lit. You know, and also when you're lighting a candle, whether you're using matches or whatever it might be, make sure you don't use loose clothing, and you don't keep anyone has long hair that might get in the way where you can actually start a little fire. And most importantly, keep matches and lighters, anything that you light these candles with, away from children. Keep them in a safe place somewhere in your home.
With the holidays upon us, people are going to start decorating their homes, and that means lights, indoor, outdoor lights. What are things that people should be doing? Is there guidance that you can offer?
Sure. I mean, holiday seasons, you know, it's always festive. People like to have a lot of decorations, and I think that's very nice. But make sure you use, again, the proper extension cords, especially outdoors. Let's start with outdoors and we'll go in. Make sure the extension cords are rated for an exterior with water and snow. Again, they're certified by proper testing agents. For example, going back to Underwriters Laboratory. You know, make sure they're on a surge protector. That's very important. That's your protection for in case you have a short or something in the lights. And anytime you're using lighting or any type of decoration, make sure you check all the lights. Go through every light, plug it in ahead of time, check the whole unit, make sure there's no frays, no burnt out lights, or any of the wires might be damaged. Make sure that's checked. And then when you go in the house, basically the same thing. Check all your lights, make sure they're operating fine, there's no shorts, have them protected through a surge protector. Also with Christmas trees, whether it's artificial or real trees, the real tree, make sure usually the places where you buy the tree usually cuts a fresh cut, make sure that's done properly. And the same thing is keep all the lights, there's a lot of different kind of lights now, the LED lights, they're cool to the touch versus the older bulbs, which can actually get very hot. So there's some recommendations I feel would be helpful in preventing and having a safe holiday season.
Are there particular situations that tend to come up during the holidays? Like I'm thinking people are doing a lot of baking, whether it's desserts or turkeys, hams. Are there things that come up that people should be thinking about and take certain precautions?
That's a great question, Mabel. And I have some recommendations. For example, if they're going to do a lot of baking, whether it's Thanksgiving, it's a long, several hours of cooking, make sure, again, like your heating appliance for heat, make sure your cooking appliance is cleaned out. Make sure there's no grease, whether you can clean it, some commercial cleaners you can use, or if you have a self-cleaning oven, make sure that's done first. Check the whole unit, making sure it's clear. You want to prevent any potential fires. Also, when you're cooking, I'll have to run out and get something to the store. You don't leave your oven cooking when no one's home. Just like a candle, you don't want to leave that home. That's when we want to prevent potential problems of fires. Also, when cooking, making sure the children stay away from the cooking area. Also, if you're boiling water, make sure the pot handles are turned in. The children have to be coming by. They can go up and maybe potentially grab it by accident. So turn those handles in. Make sure the oven's clean. Make sure the top of the stove, everything's clean and ready to go. Also, people like to deep fry turkeys. That's something that people like to do. So if you're going to do that, make sure the turkey is thawed out completely, and make sure it's dry. And if you do the deep frying, make sure it's outside, at least 15 to 20 feet from the house. Not only the house, but keep away from trees or bushes that could ignite and transmit to the house. Keep that away. Make sure it's on a stable surface. Absolutely keep children and animals away from that, a good 15, 20 feet away. That is a very hot liquid that could scald and severely injure someone. So that is some of the things I would think are very successful. Also, if you make sure your smoke detectors are working and properly placed, and also have a fire extinguisher. The recommended extinguisher, you can go to any kind of major hardware store, and it's a 2A 10BC. That's the standard for residential. But you can also, I recommend talk to your local fire department, local fire officials to say what is exactly want, and always have them stand by close to where you're cooking, and that will be a nice way if you did have a fire. And if you do have a fire or anything did have a flare up, make sure you're anything on the top of the stove, oil. You can cover it with a pan top. Make sure you try to stuff it out, shut the fire off, and if you feel it's getting out of control, leave the house and call 911. That's the safest thing you do.
That's a perfect segue. I was going to say off camera, we were talking about evacuation plans. I know that's talked about quite a bit when it comes to students, but I don't know that families really have one in place. And what should that entail?
Right. That's great. Good way to lead into that. A lot of us are home today. Children being homeschooled, due to the virus that's been happening over the last 6-8 months. So there's an acronym called EDIF, which stands for Exit Drill in the Home. It's an escape plan of the house, right? So every family would hopefully sit at the table, and have an escape plan in case you had a fire. So what you want to do, you want to make sure that if you have a fire in your house, you must leave the house, right? And make sure you have a designated place, whether it's out in the front lawn, near a tree, maybe on a neighbor's property, safe away from the house. Have a designated area. So when you do have a fire, everyone has to get out. We want to make sure everyone's out of the house. By everyone meeting in one place, you'll know, everyone got out safely. Also, you have to teach your family and children, make sure we have multiple ways of getting out of the house. For example, the front door may not always be accessible. Say the fire happens somewhere in the living room that's blocking the front entrance. So make sure we know how to get out of the side exits. Can they get out of windows? Do they have emergency escape ladders to get out of a window if you have to? But these are some of the things you want to prepare. And talk to your family, your children about what to do, when to do it. And once you get out of the house, call 911. Teach your children how to use a phone on a cell phone. The 9 and the 1 is on the bottom right and the top left. Teach them how to, even in the smoke, how to dial 911. It's something sounds simple, but it's a good thing to practice. And then, if you ever did get affected by fire, children, adults, if your clothes catch fire, learn to, they say, stop, drop, and roll. So you don't want to run because that'll flame the fire. Stop, roll on the grass, on the floor, and try to snuff out the fire. So these are some life-saving tips and things that you should practice. And that exit drill in the home is very important. Everyone should sit down, draw it out, talk about it, get everyone's input. So the more everyone's involved in it, the more they're going to be able to understand it and work with it. I think that would be very helpful, successful for safe holiday season for most families.
Chief Montagne, thank you so much for such valuable information, and you are a wonderful resource. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay. And also, if anybody wants a resource, other information, you go to the National Fire Academy. You go online and research that. Or the New Jersey Division of Fire Safety. There's some great additional tips that you could print out for yourself and your family and go over. So if you want to Google that, that's another great resource. So.
Well, I hope that you and your family are safe and healthy this holiday season.
Mabel, thanks for the opportunity, and hopefully your viewers have a safe holiday.
Thank you, sir.